Man finds German Shepherd 135 miles out at sea. What happens next is unbelievable. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath a curtain of thick, gray fog, swallowing the horizon and muting the morning sun. The waves were calm, but there was a stillness in the air that felt heavy, like the sea was mourning something no one could see. On a small, aging fishing boat named the Mira, a solitary man stood at the helm. His name was Silas Morrow, a 48-year-old fisherman with weathered hands and eyes that had long stopped looking for beauty. For years, Silas had sailed alone, fleeing from the ghosts that haunted his land-bound life. The sea didn't demand conversation. It didn't ask how he was doing. It simply let him be. As he sipped lukewarm coffee from a cracked enamel mug, something strange caught his eye. A speck, small, unmoving, floating far off in the fog. He squinted. Probably driftwood, he told himself. Happens all the time. Maybe a piece of a broken crate or a tangle of seaweed. But something felt off. It wasn't drifting aimlessly like wood should. It was too steady. And it was dark. Not the washed-out gray of ocean debris. Almost like fur? He narrowed his gaze, set the mug down, and turned the boat's throttle slowly. The engine grumbled as the Mira curved toward the speck. With each foot closer, the feeling in his chest grew heavier. And then it moved. Silas's heart slammed against his ribs. He leaned forward, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't wood. It wasn't seaweed. It was a dog. A German Shepherd. She floated awkwardly, her limbs barely keeping her above water. The dark fur on her face caked with salt and foam. Her eyes, oh, those eyes, locked onto his with a haunting intensity. Wide, weary, and filled with something he hadn't seen in a long time. Not just fear. Hope. She was trembling, too exhausted to whine or bark, too weak to paddle. Her body looked like it had been through a war. Raw patches of skin, minor wounds, and muscles barely clinging to life. But she hadn't given up. Not yet. Silas blinked, stunned. He glanced at his GPS. 135 miles from the nearest shore. How could she be out here? Alone? Alive? Thousands of questions surged through his head. But one rose above them all, drowning out everything else like a crashing wave. How did she get here? And without another thought, Silas sprang into action. Silas Morrow had long stopped expecting anything good from life. He was 48 now, but he looked older, not from age but from sorrow. His eyes, once full of light and laughter, had dimmed 5 years ago, on a rainy autumn night that shattered his world in seconds. He had been a husband once, a father. His wife, Helen, was the kind of woman who could make sunflowers bloom just by smiling at them. And his little girl, Evie, had just turned 7 when they were taken from him. One reckless driver, one red light ignored, one phone call that ended everything. Silas never returned to that house. Couldn't even bring himself to collect their things. He sold everything, bought an old fishing boat, and let the ocean swallow what remained of him. The sea became his escape, his refuge, his punishment. Out here, there were no memories haunting the hallways. No empty beds. No birthdays missed. Just the rhythmic rise and fall of the waves, and the heavy silence of a man who had forgotten how to live. Each day blended into the next. Catching fish, repairing nets, and drifting through fog like a ghost in a world that had moved on without him. Silas wasn't bitter. Not anymore. He was just numb. He didn't speak to people. Didn't answer calls from distant cousins or old friends who tried to check in. He rarely even docked near towns. If he needed fuel or supplies, he did it quickly, eyes down, mouth shut. Conversations were for people who still had something to say. Silas didn't. He talked only to the ocean now. Sometimes, late at night, when the stars blanketed the sky and the sea was calm, he would whisper into the wind. Not prayers, just memories, echoes, and the ocean, ever vast and indifferent, never answered back. Until today. Until this morning, when the sea didn't offer silence or solitude, but instead, it offered him a dying dog with pleading eyes. A creature that shouldn't have been here. A mystery wrapped in fur and fatigue. A living soul, somehow still clinging to hope where even Silas had none. As he reached over the side of the boat to pull the German shepherd aboard, a strange feeling stirred in his chest. Faint, unfamiliar, and terrifying. Something like purpose. Silas didn't think. There was no time to. The dog was slipping. One moment, her head was barely above the waves. The next, it began to sink, her eyes glazing as exhaustion dragged her under. The ocean was pulling her back, as if trying to reclaim its secret. Silas threw off his jacket and lunged over the side of the boat. The cold punched him in the chest like a hammer. Salt water stung his eyes, flooded his nose and mouth, but he pushed forward, arms slicing through the waves, refusing to let the sea win this time. She was barely conscious when he reached her, her legs twitching in slow, useless motions. He grabbed hold of her under the chest, her soaked fur slipping through his fingers. It took everything he had to stay afloat and drag her back toward the mirror. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned, but his heart, for the first time in years, thundered with life. With a final push, he hoisted her limp body onto the side rail, then clambered aboard behind her, gasping for air, coughing seawater out of his throat. She lay on the deck, wheezing, foam dripping from her mouth, her body shivering violently. But she was breathing, alive. Silas collapsed next to her, both soaked to the bone, staring up at the blank sky. He didn't know who she was, or how she'd gotten here, but something inside him knew. She mattered. As his breath began to steady, Silas sat up and gently turned to the dog. Her eyes flickered open, glassy but aware. She didn't growl, didn't bark, just watched him with a kind of silent gratitude. He ran his fingers through her fur. It was caked in salt and grime, tangled with tiny cuts, likely from coral or sharp debris. Her paws were raw, and one leg looked slightly swollen, maybe twisted. She had no collar, no tag. But as he rubbed behind her ear, something caught his eye, a faint mark. A tiny tattoo, barely visible, inked inside her left ear. Letters and numbers. A trace of identity. A history. He didn't know what it meant yet, but it stirred a chill in his spine. This wasn't just a lost pet. This dog had been somewhere. Possibly taken from somewhere. Or worse, left behind. Silas didn't let the thought linger. He slid off his shirt and wrapped it around her, his hands trembling as he tucked it gently beneath her chin like a blanket. "Hang on, girl," he murmured, brushing her wet face with the back of his knuckles. "You're not going anywhere. Not on my watch." The sea for once was quiet, but something far louder had awakened in Silas. A fire, a responsibility, and maybe, just maybe, the first flicker of love he had felt in half a decade. That night, the sea was unusually still, as if it, too, understood something sacred had happened. Silas had dried her as best he could, laid her on a woolen blanket, and placed a bowl of water near her head. But she didn't touch it, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Her body remained tense, her breath shallow, ears flicking at every sound like she was still fighting for her life. The trauma hadn't left her. She flinched every time Silas moved. Her eyes darted to the door, to the windows, to the sea. Whatever she had endured, it was recent, and it had left deep scars that weren't visible on her skin. Silas didn't push her. He simply sat on the floor a few feet away, watching her with soft eyes. He knew what it was to be trapped in a world that no longer made sense. And then, without thinking, he began to hum. It was an old, half-forgotten lullaby. The same one he used to sing when little Evie had nightmares, curled up in bed with her stuffed giraffe. The tune hung in the air like a whisper from the past. Silas thought it was foolish, until the dog turned her head. Slowly, cautiously, she shuffled forward on her belly, just a few inches, then rested her head gently on his leg. He froze. The warmth of her trust, even in its smallest form, hit him harder than the cold ocean ever could. He lowered his hand, brushed her fur once, and kept humming until her eyelids finally fluttered closed. That night, they both slept for the first time in a very long time. In the following days, a quiet rhythm settled between them. She was still cautious, still wary, but she began to follow him around the boat, her tail low but swaying ever so slightly. Silas spoke to her often, not in commands or expectations, but in confessions. He told her about Helen's laugh, how it could stop a room. He told her about Evie's dream to be a mermaid scientist, and how she once tried to save a jellyfish by throwing it into the neighbor's bathtub. He spoke of things he hadn't dared say aloud in 5 years. Memories he thought were buried forever. And she listened, not just with her ears, but with her entire being, head tilted, eyes locked, as if understanding every sorrow that spilled from his soul. She never barked, never interrupted. She simply existed beside him, a living presence that refused to let him drown in his grief. That's when he knew this wasn't just a dog. She was something else, a sign, a chance, a second sunrise after years of darkness. So he gave her a name, Solara. Means of the sun, he whispered, brushing her fur behind her ear. Because somehow, you brought the light back. She wagged her tail once, ever so slightly, and nestled closer to his chest. After days at sea, Silas finally docks at a sleepy coastal town he seldom visited. It wasn't much, just a harbor, a convenience store, and a single veterinarian's office near the edge of the cliff. He carried Solara into the clinic wrapped in a faded quilt, cradling her like a child. She was recovering, eating a little, walking with a limp, but something in him knew they needed answers. That tattoo had been gnawing at his mind like a silent riddle. The vet, Dr. Lena Moreau, was an older woman with kind eyes. As she gently examined Solara, her face changed the moment she spotted the numbers inked inside the ear. She stepped back, blinking in disbelief. You said, you found her where exactly? Out at sea. 100 miles, maybe more. No boat. No land in sight. Dr. Moreau swallowed hard, then pulled out a file from her cabinet. This tattoo, this number, it's from a restricted military registry. Silas stiffened. She was part of a specialized K-9 unit, trained for reconnaissance and rescue under extreme conditions. So she was military? Yes. Her name was Solara, according to this. Dr. Moreau flipped to a page. She went missing over a year ago during a classified op overseas. The records listed her as presumed dead. Silas stared at the trembling dog beside him. Dead? She had survived oceans, loss, and terror, only to end up in his boat. Silas couldn't sleep that night. While Solara curled by the fireplace in his cabin, he sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, fingers shaking as he typed. The vet had been kind enough to send him links, forums, archives, fragments of military reports. Most were redacted, shadowy with secrecy. But one thing kept popping up: Elias Crane. A soldier with a reputation for bravery, a man who had disappeared during the same mission Solara vanished in. Silas clicked deeper, found a tribute page, a grainy photo. His heart stopped. It was him, his brother. Elias had changed, hardened by war, thinner, eyes lined with fatigue. But it was undeniably him. Silas leaned back, the air gone from his lungs. They hadn't spoken in over a decade, not since the fight. Harsh words, a slammed door, years of silence that neither had broken. Silas had believed Elias had died without ever making peace. Now Elias was listed as missing in action. And the dog that had belonged to him, the only creature who had likely seen his last days, had found Silas 135 miles out at sea. No, this wasn't random. Solara had come with a purpose. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a messenger. A piece of Elias, washed ashore into the arms of the one man who needed him most. Silas looked down at her sleeping form, her chest rising and falling, and whispered, "You didn't just survive for yourself, did you? You came back for me." For the first time in years, he cried, not out of sorrow, but out of awe, because fate, in all its mystery, had reached across oceans, wars, and years, to reunite two broken brothers through the loyalty of a single, faithful soul. In the quiet warmth of the cabin, Solara twitches in her sleep. Her legs move slightly, as if running, whimpering. Silas watches her from across the room, unaware that inside her mind, the past is roaring back like thunder. Through Solara's eyes, the memory unfolds. They were mid-air, the helicopter slicing through the ocean wind under moonlight. Elias sat beside her, hand on her harness, calm despite the radio static screaming bad news. Something wasn't right. Then, the explosion. Metal buckled. The world flipped. Blades shattered. Chaos. Water swallowed them whole. Solara struggled, trapped by her harness. The weight of gear pulled her down. Elias's hands were there, fumbling, freeing her, despite the blood on his temple. Go, girl. Go find home. His voice was steady, even as the storm above raged. Find Silas. He'll know what to do. That name. Silas. Solara didn't understand the words, but she felt the urgency. The command soaked in love. She swam. Days blurred into one another. She drifted on pieces of wreckage. Her paws bled. Her body thinned. She endured lightning, salt, and circling fins. More than once, she sank below the surface, ready to surrender. But his voice always pulled her back. Find Silas. And somehow instinct or maybe something greater guided her. That name echoed through her even now. Silas. A face she had never seen, yet somehow recognized when she finally found him. The moment she locked eyes with him on that boat, she knew, not just by scent or memory, but by the way her heart steadied for the first time in weeks. Because she had found him. She had kept the promise. In her dream, Elias's voice returns, soft and distant. Good girl. You found him. Back in the cabin, she stirs, opens her eyes. Silas is still watching. He crosses the room and kneels beside her. I don't know how or why, but I'm here now, and I'm not letting you go. She places her paw over his hand. Two beings once lost, now whole. Not just a dog and a man, but the bridge between a broken past and a chance to heal what once seemed beyond repair. The weight of Solara's body in his arms feels different now. Not heavy, but fragile, precious. As he gently cradles her against his chest, he feels a quiet, powerful shift inside himself. The dog, scarred and bruised, has become more than just a companion. She is the vessel of something far larger than he can grasp. Tears well up, unbidden. Solara watches him with those wise, knowing eyes, as though she understands the turmoil in his heart. Silas trembles, the floodgates finally breaking open. You didn't just survive, Solara, he whispers, his voice breaking. You came back with a piece of my brother. The words echo through him, resonating in the silence of the room. In that moment, he sees everything clearly. Not just the pain of losing Elias, but the faint, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, his brother had survived too. The pieces are falling into place. The unexplained tattoo, the long silence, the unexpected reunion. Elias might be alive. A thought, a fragile hope, sparks something in Silas. He can't sit idly anymore. The deep loneliness that had consumed him for so long, the hollow ache in his chest, begins to lift. Because now, for the first time in years, he has something to fight for. His brother, his family, and Solara, his bridge to a past he thought was forever lost. He grabs his phone, his hands trembling as he starts making calls. Military contacts, friends from his younger days, people who knew Elias. The answers might be elusive, but Silas is ready to seek them. There's no going back now. He will find out the truth. He will find Elias. Days blend into weeks. The search for Elias becomes an obsession. But through it all, Solara stays by Silas's side. Every step of the way, she's there, as constant and steadfast as the ocean itself. At night, Silas dreams of his brother. Visions of a soldier in the mud, a man with wild eyes and broken trust. He doesn't know where Elias is, but he believes he's out there, somewhere. And that belief is driven by Solara, who never leaves him alone. In the quiet moments of their days, when Silas works through old files or contacts more people, Solara lies on the floor beside him. When he gets lost in his thoughts, she nudges him with her nose, grounding him. Her love is unconditional. a reminder that healing is possible, that forgiveness is worth seeking, and that sometimes the greatest power lies in unseen bonds. There is no barrier between them anymore. Solara has given Silas the one thing he had lost, hope. A bond built not just on survival, but on the quiet understanding that their paths crossed for a reason. They are both survivors, both scarred, but together they will heal. As he sits by the phone, waiting for one of his military contacts to call back, Silas looks down at Solara. She looks up at him with her eyes full of trust, a deep, unspoken connection passing between them. "Thank you, girl," he says softly, as if the words are finally enough to express all he feels. She responds with a nudge to his hand, her way of telling him that they're in this together. The search continues, and so does their journey, one of redemption, healing, and perhaps the discovery of something far greater than they ever imagined. It's late one evening when the phone rings, shattering the quiet stillness of Silas's home. His heart skips a beat as he rushes to answer, a strange feeling of urgency rising in his chest. "Hello." Silas's voice is rough with anticipation. On the other end, a voice he never expected to hear again speaks. "Mr. Silas Crane?" Yes, this is Silas." "Who is this?" His voice shakes, a sense of dread mixing with hope. "Sir, we've found your brother." The words hit like a wave, and for a moment Silas can't breathe. "Elias." "Yes, he's alive. Found him in a remote fishing village, on the edge of the coast. He has no memory of the past year, but we showed him a photo of a dog, a German shepherd, and he recognized her." Silas's hands begin to shake as he closes his eyes, the overwhelming emotions crashing over him. "Solara," he whispers. "It's really him." Through the phone, he hears a faint bark, followed by the sound of someone gently speaking to a dog. A familiar voice, though it's been years since he last heard it. Silas's throat tightens. The reunion begins, not through a direct meeting, but through Solara's bond, the connection that had led her to him all those weeks ago. Solara, her ears perked at the sound of Elias's voice through the phone, barks again, her tail wagging as if she knows this is the moment she's waited for. She has always known the truth that Silas could only now begin to understand. Tears well in Silas's eyes. This is real. His brother is alive. And Solara, the dog who had brought them back together, had been the key to unlocking the past. Days later, Elias returns. He's different. A man changed, scarred by memory loss and the hardships of survival, but he's here, standing in front of Silas for the first time in years. His eyes search Silas's face, uncertain, but there's something more, something deeper. As Elias steps forward, Silas reaches out, arms trembling with emotion. They stand there for a long moment, silent, before they embrace. The years of silence, anger, and pain slip away in that one single hug. The brothers hold each other tightly, as if trying to make up for lost time, for the time stolen by grief and misunderstanding. Solara, ever loyal, stands at their feet. She trots over to them, her tail wagging furiously, unable to contain her joy. She circles between the two men, licking their hands, her eyes bright with the same love she had shown Silas from the moment they met. And in that moment, it's clear. She was the bridge between them all. 3 lives, once lost, now saved by fate, loyalty, and love. Elias bends down to Solara, his voice cracking with emotion. "You brought me home, girl," he whispers, scratching her ears as she jumps in excitement. Solara barks once more, and the 3 of them, Silas, Elias, and Solara, stand together whole again, the family reunited in a way neither had imagined possible. The scars remain, but they no longer define them. The pain, the separation, the years of grief. It's all fading now, replaced with a renewed sense of hope. The kind of hope that only love can bring, and the kind of bond that only a dog, a soldier, and a fisherman could understand. This is where their journey ends, but a new chapter begins. One of healing, of rediscovery, and of the unbreakable power of family, no matter how long it takes to find one another. As the days stretch into months, The three of them find solace in a new life, a life built on the very healing that Solara had given them. Silas and Elias, once estranged brothers, now share a quiet cabin by the sea, the place where they first learned to heal. The cabin is modest but full of love, a space where their scars are no longer sources of shame, but of strength. They fill the walls with memories, photos of their past, reminders of the life they're building. Together, they volunteer in search and rescue efforts, using their own experiences to help others in need. Silas and Elias, side by side, now work to pull others from the wreckage, just as Solara had pulled them from their darkest moments. Solara, who had once been a shadow of fear and uncertainty, now becomes a symbol of hope, the dog who found her way home. People from the town stop by, eager to meet the dog who had defied the odds and brought two men back from the brink of despair. In the town square, a small plaque is erected in her honor. It reads, Solara, a beacon of hope, resilience, and the power of never giving up. Every time Silas and Elias pass it, they're reminded of how far they've come, how far Solara has brought them. Every day, Solara runs alongside Silas and Elias, her tail wagging happily as she leads them down paths they never thought they'd walk again. The cabin by the sea, once a place of solitude, is now filled with laughter, love, and the shared purpose of healing the past and helping others. Late one evening, as the sun dips low over the ocean, Silas sits at his desk, a journal open before him. Solara lies at his feet, her head resting on his shoe, and Elias sits nearby, quietly watching the horizon. Silas picks up his pen, his thoughts turning inward. He writes, "She didn't just save our lives. She saved two broken men who thought they were lost forever." As he finishes the sentence, he sets the pen down, feeling the weight of the words in the silence that follows. For so long, Silas had believed he was beyond saving, that he would forever be lost in the echo of his own grief. But Solara had shown him something different, that no matter how broken a heart might be, love and loyalty have the power to rebuild it. And now, as he looks out the window, watching the waves crash against the shore, he knows he's found what he never thought possible: peace. The ocean may have once been his refuge from the world, but now it's a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, light can find its way. Just as Solara had found her way home, so too had Silas and Elias found theirs. And with Solara at their side, they are no longer lost. They are home. Do you believe animals can be messengers of destiny? If the story moved you even a little, share it with someone who's lost hope. Because sometimes, love finds us when we least expect it, even 135 miles out at sea.